Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to talk about just the two properties of circles that we really have. There's only two properties, the center and the radius. And as soon as we can get the equation from any form they give us into what's called their standard form, which has the center given by what's being minused from the x in parentheses squared, is the x value. The y value of the center is the value that's being minus from the y in parentheses squared equals, and they always have the radius squared on the right. So for this first one, it's very simple. Just bring over the negative 16 or add 16 to both sides, and we find out that the radius squared is 16. What number times itself is 16? Well, it's 4. So the radius is 4. I'm going to skip ahead because radius is to a this one here, we'll have to make sure we complete the square on it in order to find the complete radius. The radius is just not this 10 brought over. In fact, that would be a negative, and you can't have a negative radius. So the first thing we're going to do is get this into standard form. So the first step is grouping the x terms together. So I put the x squared next to the negative 7x. I left a space for a missing term that I need to create a 3-term trinomial that is a perfect square. And so what I usually do is I start with the next step, because I realize this down here, if I had a perfect square trinomial, would have to be half of this value. And it's all right to get fractions. So I get 7/2. And the missing value then is always that, whoops, that's supposed to be a 7/2, not a 7/7, is this value squared, which is going to be 49/4, because 7 squared is 49, 2 squared is 4. And if I add that to the left side of the equation, I am going to add it to the right side of the equation. When I add the negative 10 to the 49/4, it leaves me 9/4. The square root of 9/4, because remember that's r squared, is 3/4. The radius is 3/4. Because remember, you always got to square root this. The center would be a x value of 7/2 and a y value of 0 if it asks for the center. What did I put? The correct answer is 3/2. Oh, I didn't square the 4. I see my mistake. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 4 is 2. So I should have typed in a 2, not a 3/4. It's a 3/2. Make sure you square both the top and bottom of the radius squared, or the fraction that's given. In this problem, we're asked to find the center. So again, we need to take this equation that's written in general form and write it in standard form. So what I did again is I grouped the x terms together. I'm going to complete the square. So I'm going to take half of 9, which is going to be a 9/2 or 4.5, but I like to do fractions. I'm going to square that to give me this missing term here, which is going to be 81/4. And then I actually have to add that into the other side. So I added it to both sides. Luckily, the one side is 0, so it makes it easy, 81/4. I really don't need to know what the radius is, though, because it's asking for the center. I can see what my center is. My center is an x value of 9/2, because remember, it's the opposite of what you see, and a y value of 0, because I'm not adding or subtracting from the y value. Now, this problem is probably it's the hardest that you should see. It's basically when you have to complete the square on both the x terms. So I grouped the x terms together, the x squared and the 2x. I grouped the two y terms together, the y squared and the negative 6y. I brought the negative 6 to the opposite side, making it positive. Now I complete the square. Half of 2 is 1. So this is going to be a +1. That means I had to add 1 to this trinomial here. I'm also going to add 1 to the right side. Here, half of negative 6 is -3. If I square -3, I get a +9. That means I also have to add 9 to the right side. So when I add these three values together, I get 16. And now I have my equation in standard form. I know my center is -1, +3, and my radius, if it happened to ask for my radius, would be 4, because the square root of 16 is 4. But it asks for the center. So I'll just quickly type in -1 and 3. But again, it's just that simple process of completing the square, grouping the x's, finding the missing term to make it a trinomial that's a perfect square, grouping the y's, likewise finding the missing third term that makes it a perfect square. Whatever you add to the left side, make sure you add to the right, and you have your standard form of your circle. If you have any questions, please do bring them to class.